There's a fish. Yep. Yeah, that's straight off the bottom. Pretty good fish actually. He's probably close to 40 centimetres. G'day guys, here we are at beautiful Lake Glenbourne. This is my home lake and it's the middle of summer right now. In New South Wales we get a really good deep plastic bite happening this time of year. So today I'm going to be taking you through the ins and outs of a fairly simple technique. But first off, we're going to have a look at why the fish are so deep and why a vertical presentation is so good at catching them. First off, let's have a look at why the fish are so deep. It's the middle of summer here in Australia, especially in inland New South Wales here. We can have some really hot weather. We can have constant 40-degree days, one after another. So that hot weather naturally heats up the surface water. And as that water heats up, it creates less oxygen. As that temperature gets up, it really drives the fish away and wants them to go into their comfort zone, which is generally out deeper, where that temperature is less and there's more oxygen. Also, this year we've had a really dry season, so it's only natural that the lake levels are dropping. And anyone that knows impoundment fishing, when those levels are dropping, it really can turn the fish off a little bit and really drives them off the edge and down into the deep. Here's one. Oh, he's in a bit of timber. Textbook, ate it straight off the bottom. Unlike some Queensland impoundments where the fish can congregate in certain areas, New South Wales impoundments are absolutely loaded with bass. You don't have to go far to find them or catch them. So you can see there we're straight out the front of the boat ramp here at Glenbourne, and if you have a look there on this sounder you can see scattered fish coming through. That's probably more than enough to pull up and you'll be able to individually target those fish. So as we come up into 40 foot, you probably should see some more coming through there now. Righto, let's talk about the technique itself. We've found some fish on the sounder. Check. How are we going to go about catching them? Because they're holding so deep, it can be really hard on the cast to keep your lure down there in the strike zone in front of the fish's face. And then you add trees into the equation that are absolutely riddled throughout Glenbourne here and most impoundments. You're going to be spending more time getting snagged up than actually fishing. And the presentation is as simple as it sounds. Find fish, drop down to them, wind back up past them. Really easy. Great for newcomers to the sport or kids. There's no casting accuracy needed at all. And if you do find yourself around or over a tree, it's certainly a lot easier to slowly wind your plastic up and over the branches than on the cast. Now let's look at this technique a little bit more in depth, no pun intended. The fish are holding down there because it's their comfort zone. Oxygen is just right, temperature's great, they're having a ball. Now think about them holding at this depth, the same as casting to an edge like this with structure like weed and timber. As you cast out, or wind up in this case, you're winding it further away from their comfort zone and they have to react. So in this scenario where you're dropping down the fish and winding it up, it has to make a decision on whether it wants to eat it or let it go. Now this next statement is the most important thing that you need to know about impoundment bass fishing. Across all seasons and every technique, it's all about finding the depth that the fish are holding at, not so much the structure. If you can find out the depth that they're holding at and eating at, you should be able to pattern this across the whole lake. I don't know if I'm going to get him out. There's a lot of timber down there. The light rod is ideal for these finesse bites. So you sort of tap that once or twice, and you don't really want a heavy rod for this. You want something that's a little bit forgiving so that fish can come back and eat it again. Next up is the tackle we use for this technique. 7 foot is a good all-round length for this. This is the Soul 701. It's the ultralight 1 to 3 kilo, nice soft rod, and you need a fairly small reel, anything under sort of 2500, so you're not burning it too quick away from those fish. So this is a Soul TD3, it's a new one, it's a 2500, love it, it's a great little reel. and you want thin line to cut through that water. You don't want to be really having big bellies in the line or really restricting your lure presentation down there. So that's just the 6 pound J braid, and that's just a 6 pound leader. I like to run a fairly longish leader. We've got pretty clear water here, and plus you're dropping it up and down and past the fish. I've got pretty bright braid here, so I usually just get a permanent marker and colour in about the sort of first 10 feet. Don't know if it works or not, it just gives me a comfort that the fish can't see that line as easily. Righto, when it comes to jig heads, I only use one for the vertical presentation. It's the 1/4 ounce Bassman jig head by Glenn and Sue Casey. First off, it's super realistic, it's painted and it looks really good, and it matches up well to most of the curltail grubs. What is probably the best thing about this jig head, it will retrieve on a slightly 45-degree angle, so that stops the plastic from spiraling on the way up. Not only are you going to have to combat with line twist, but it really creates an unnatural presentation. The reason I go 1/4 ounce is you don't want a really heavy jig head that's going to plummet all the way to the bottom. Yes, it is easy to drop a heavy one down there, but most of the time these fish are going to follow it on the way down. And you want something that's going to swim past at a nice, steadily sort of pace. And most of the time they'll follow it all the way to the bottom, if not eat it on the drop. And as they follow it down, and when you start that retrieve up, that's when you're going to get the bites. Now, the vertical plastic is a fairly simple technique. Find fish, drop down to them, hopefully catch a few. A little theory that helped me and will hopefully help you catch some big fish is the fresh fish theory. A few years ago, some mates of mine were down here, we were fishing a tournament, and we all did really well, was using this theory. Every time we pulled up at a spot, we'd catch a big fish or we'd catch a couple of fish really quick, and the longer we stayed and fished them, the harder and harder they became to catch. So it was the fresh fish theory. And really, it's fairly simple. We know this place here at Glenbourne is absolutely loaded with fish. I can see them here, I'm out in 50 foot, and I can just see them one after the other just coming through. So all we do is a simple pitch out. Now that pitch serves two purposes. By pitching out, it creates a belly in the line which sits on the surface. As I was saying before, a bass or a yellow belly will eat a plastic on the drop. By this belly in the line, it assists the plastic not to spiral on the drop. It creates some drag so it swims down naturally. And also by pitching out, we're pitching to fresh fish that haven't seen our plastic yet. So the idea is we pitch out and we try and line the boat to come over the top of your plastic just as it touches down on the bottom. 9 times out of the 10, a fish will eat this directly off the bottom. So we're in 50 foot of water here, and I'm coming directly over the top of my plastic, and I can see it there just come up off the bottom. I'm winding up 4 to 5 winds is where I'm most likely going to catch a fish, and I can see there is nothing following it. So I don't really have anything there. So I'm not going to waste my time and keep fishing that. I'm just going to wind it all the way back up again and pitch out again. So this fresh fish theory hopefully will put your plastic in front of fish that haven't seen it 100 times and generally will not end up eating it. They're not like Queensland bass where if you sit on them for hours and hours and hours, they might eventually bite. So you're better off just picking a spot out here. I'm going to work the edge of these trees and just constantly just be pitching out in front. If I catch one or get a bite, I will drop back down. But generally, if I don't see any action, I'll just keep moving on. Ideal conditions right now for a plastic. They love this hot, glassed out weather. It really pushes them down deep, and that subtle plastic seems to be, what they really want. I find that when it's a little bit more windy and the water's a bit more stirred up, or it's a little bit overcast, sometimes a little bit more of an aggressive style of lure will work like a blade or a tail spinner. But those big guys, they seem to just like the plastic. It seems to be, you know, your good all-round producer. There we go. You know, a lot of guys, they rate a certain couple of type of curl-tail grubs. And yes, they do produce. Berkeley Gulp grub and a Z-Man grub, yes, they all work. And majority of the guys use them mainly because of tournaments and guys that have done really well on them. But today I've found a lot of the fish are eating the plastic straight off the bottom, which indicates to me that they're eating more of a crawfish pattern. So I've just changed over to a Kiatech 3-inch little spider, as you can see there, which really imitates a craw just coming up off the bottom. Those bites have been within the first 2 or 3 winds, and this little guy is just a perfect imitator of a craw. As he sits down, he stirs up the silt on the bottom, attracts the fish over, and as it comes up out of that silt, they just can't help themselves and think it's a little craw. Not a bad little bass, we'll just let him go now. Where I spoke about before, about find where the fish are holding at, and you should be able to pattern them throughout the lake. We're cruising along here out in 140 feet, but you can see a distinct thermocline from around sort of 15 feet down to around 35 feet. And you can see just beneath it there, just a constant showing of just fish, just one after the other, even though we're way out in the middle here. So that gives you an idea where you need to start straight away. You can see 40 feet is a pretty good all-round depth. There we go. Oh, this guy's suspended out off these trees here. I mean, 70 foot, and he ate it in about 45. Righto, the $1 million question, what plastic to use? Well, this is a fun one. I always enjoy listening to guys talk about that they only ate a certain colour today, or they only ate this style of grub or this one. It really comes down to personal preference. Guys will always go back to their favourites. Probably what you need to start out with is just a curl-tail grub. Yes, you will catch them on a paddle tail. I caught a couple on little spiders today, trying to imitate a craw down on the bottom. But if you just stick to a curl tail grub as your first or start out bait, you can't go wrong. They swim at a super slow speed. Unlike a paddle tail, which requires a little bit more of a quicker wind to get them to work, a grub tail works really well. So what you really need to concentrate is on rigging that plastic 100% true on that jig head. You don't want it all crooked so it swims up on weird angles. You want to really concentrate on just getting that 100% true. So I'm just going to rig, this is a Z-Man 2.5 inch grub here. So you always line the plastic up where the hook is going to come out, and I've rigged quite a few of these so I know exactly where they are. So you just push it up nice and snug onto the jig head, bring it back, and you want a really natural looking presentation like that. So you can see there I can turn the plastic 360 degrees around and it looks pretty well even the whole way around. So the body is dead center on the plastic, and that's going to give you the best presentation for down deep. A good sounder is pretty well key for this deep vertical technique. You really need to know what depth the boat is sitting in, and it is an advantage to be able to see exactly what's happening underneath you. So most good quality sounders can read or pick up your plastic when it's in the transducer beam. You just want to adjust that sensitivity up just high enough that you can see it without blacking out the whole screen. What I'm going to take you through now is exactly what I see underneath us while I fish for these deep fish. Righto guys, I'm going to try and show you exactly what we can see on the sounder beneath us here. So I've just come off the edge of some trees there, and you can see my plastic making its way down to the bottom there. 25, about to hit 30 feet.
Oh, and it looks like a fish that may be coming up to have a look at it, but I'm still going to drop it all the way down. Got a good showing there actually, got quite a few fish by the looks of it. I'm going to let it go all the way down to the bottom. Still sinking, still sinking, still sinking. So we've got a good show of fish here actually. Hopefully one of these guys will commit. There we go. Now it's on the bottom. I'm just going to give a little twitch to try and imitate a little craw that could be on the bottom. A little shrimp, something like that down in the silt. No bites down there on the bottom, so now it's just a really super slow wind up. If you think you're winding slow, you could go even slower again. They love it in front of their face. Oh, there was a tap, I just missed one. Even dead sticking sometimes can work, so just continue on that really super slow roll. Coming up now, look, we've got a good show on there. We've probably got, what, 5 or 6 fish directly underneath us there, and they look like all right fish. They've got some good yellowy sort of showings through the lines there. You can see my plastic, it's up there now, it's at 30 feet. I only got one bite then, so I'm just going to drop back down again. Hopefully get one of these guys to commit. So the plastic's on its way back down there. You can see the line there sort of going at 45 degrees, and now it's sort of disappearing amongst all those fish and probably a bit of shrub there or edge of a tree or something that we're picking up on the sounder. So down it goes. It's now sitting on the bottom. Little twitch again, just to imitate a little shrimp, something like that on the bottom. Nothing. Righto. Now we're going to start that really super slow roll up again. Nice and slow. Just trying to keep it in front of their face as long as you possibly can, so they can have a good look at it and decide whether they want to eat it or not. So it's coming up now. I can't really see it. It's probably around 40 feet, probably 35 now. Oh, fish followed it up then, gave it a real good whack. You can see that. Oh, there's another one coming up to it now. Oh, there we go. He ate it. He ate it. He ate that about 30 feet. You can see him there now. He's sort of swimming. Here he comes up now. Coming up to 20 feet. $15, should be able to see him coming up now. Oh, and it's a nice yellow belly. Look at that, happy days. There you go, nice looking yellow belly to finish off the trip. Not only is it a great technique on the bass, yellow belly absolutely love it as well. You know, you can probably catch just as many yellow belly doing this as bass sometimes. So I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something new. If you got any more questions, feel free to comment below or just send me a message.